Have you ever lost hours of work because of a simple mistake? It's frustrating, isn't it? Did you know that a lot of game projects fail not because of bad ideas or lack of talent, but due to poor organization? So stick around, and today we're going to learn about how to prevent that from happening to your projects. This is the Polyglot Programmer, and we're going to talk about version control, right? So, what is it and why does it matter, right? So, in game development and in software development in general, version control is a game changer, guys. It's a must have, right? Version control systems can help you track changes, can help you manage your code, can help you collaborate easily with others across the world in a remote environment where everybody's working nowadays. And it's like, for those that don't know what it is, it's like having a little time machine for your project where you can easily undo mistakes and keep everyone kind of on the same page, right, about what's going on, right? So let's talk about a little bit about what happened to game developers that do not use version control. I'm talking game developers, but that's actually more, it can happen to any software projects, right? So you might have experienced some of these situations, right? So, for example, one of them is loss of progress, right? You're deep into a project, you make a small change, and all of a sudden, everything breaks. Nothing works, you don't know what it did. And then when you try to backtrack it, you actually didn't do such a small change, you actually did a lot of small changes, you don't know what you changed anymore, and without version control, it's really hard to get your project back to a working state, right? So that's one, and that's a really common one. Another one is a conflicting changes, right? So let's say that you're working, you and with your teammate, he's in another part of the world, and you both working in the same file, for instance, and you lack communicating with each other, and then you both save your changes and you send your files to each other and they overlap, and boom, chaos. You don't know whose change needs to go in, whose change is more important, whose change works, what's breaking what, and then you basically in that manual merging hell of your project, right? And and the other situation is just collaboration challenges, right? So if you're working with a team with one person, I still think you should use version control. Some people don't think so, but I still think there are a lot of benefits. But when you're working with a team, it's really hard to track who is working on what, who's making changes to what, and without version control, it's practically impossible to keep everything organized, even if you're working with some whatever Google Drive system like, yeah. So if any of these sound familiar, this is where version control can basically save the day. And this is, and we're gonna get into why and how it can help a little bit, right? So how does version control actually works, and what are the options available that we have for game development, right? So the most popular systems that we have for version control that are used in game development are Git and Perforce. Yes, we do have SVN, we do have Plastic, but for the most part, most people use Git and Perforce, and especially Git for solo devs and small teams, right? Perforce is a little bit more of a hassle. It has a little bit of a different workflow. To be honest, I'm just gonna talk about the main features here in this video. If you guys want me to go deep into either one of these guys or both of them, feel free to drop a message in the comments, and I'll be happy to make a specific video about them. Right? So both have their strength. Like I said, they have a little bit of a different workflow. But here are some of the features that they share, although one might have a little bit of a different name in another. But here we go. One of them is branching, right? So branching is basically, when you're working with Git, branching is basically like when you create like a copy of a project, which is like a separate timeline for your project, and you're developing a new feature or you're trying to implement a risky change to your project, then you create a branch. That's like a parallel universe where you can do whatever you want, and then you can, what you do is usually you create like a pull request or a merge request that goes back, that is a lot of times goes through a code review process, and then it gets merged up back into the main branch, the main pipeline of your project, right? The other another feature is obviously, which I already mentioned, is merging. Is when you use the version control system to help you actually merge the differences that different people worked on the project, sometimes in the same file, sometimes in different files, and the merging and version control helps you with that. and it's seamlessly and ensure that everybody is working together perfectly, right? Another couple of features that are kind of cool is one of them is tagging, for example. Tagging is usually when you want to, let's say, just just literally tag a point in time of your project that you may mark an important milestone, or usually it's used a lot also for versioning or for releases of your project. So it's really easy and really useful to use also. And another one that you can use a lot on Git, right? Is squashing, right? Squashing is simply when you have your that huge commit history, and then you combine a lot of those changes into one. So in order to keep the history of your repository just cleaner and easier to understand, so it doesn't have a lot of those little tiny commits that don't really mean anything. And that's when you use squashing. A lot of times you use merge and squashing together, right? And yes, these are some of the features that you have in most version control systems. Like I said, depending on the version control system that you're gonna have, they may have a different name, but yes. Um, yeah, so I mean, here are some real world examples, right, that you can have when people don't use version control, right? So, a while back, for example, I was talking to this developer on Discord, and he said that he lost weeks of work because they weren't using version control because somebody screwed up the project and they lost some files, and that went into oblivion, right? Another thing that happens quite often, and you see that happening a lot with people that don't use version control, some team name member overrides critical files in a project that gets overwritten for everybody or for himself if he's working alone, and then there are no backups, right? That's actually a funny story that actually happened to Pixar that I read recently on their book called Creativity Inc. They almost lost like I think half a year of work for Toy Story 2 or something back in the day. Of course, version control wasn't really a thing. But thankfully, somebody made a backup outside of the building and they did manage to save the movie that everybody saw, right? And in contrast, when teams use version control, those things are easily recoverable and usually in a matter of seconds, maybe minutes if you need to kind of nitpick the changes and whatnot. So version control really makes you bulletproof to those types of changes, like overriding critical files, people losing weeks of work that would never happen by using version control, right? So basically that's it. So version control, guys, is not a just a tool. It's a safety net and it's a must-have safety net, right? It can help you save time, it can help you prevent errors, it can make collaboration really easy with large teams, right? And to be honest, I heard stories of developers, even famous developers out there that say that they do not use any type of version control. But in my opinion, and in with over 2 decades of professional experience in software development and game development, having worked for AAA studios and whatnot, these are not professional models that you should follow, at least not on this topic. When you hear a developer saying that they do not use version control, you can just forget what they said about that and move on. Maybe they have something interesting to say about something else, but not this. Trust me, right? And even if you're a solo developer or part of a team, it's version control is an essential part of game development and software development in general, right? And how about you? Do you have any stories or any interesting facts about version control? If you do, please share your experience. I do want to know them. I do want to hear them. Drop them in the comments. I would love to talk to you guys about that. You can also join my Discord where I'm trying to be more active over there. And you can also follow me on Twitch where I'm trying to get to stream more often. And if you found this video helpful and if you want to know hear me talk more about game development and software development in general, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss any updates from the channel. And thanks for watching and happy coding, happy game development.